So, in the review, a lot of the studies that were done were behavioral studies done on mice and rats. And so, not a lot of biochemical, it seems. So this, I'd say, is where a lot of it is going to go to, clinical use, because they've shown that it has no dependency as a drug, and that the kappa opioid receptors have actually been shown to fight or antagonize morphine dependency. And so that was a big thing for them, was because you have this compound that I believe it also has actually been shown to antagonize morphine, but then on top of that, these receptors can antagonize that dependency as well. And also, it's metabolized very quickly in the body, and so long-term effects and lingering effects aren't as much of a concern. So, there are obviously some drawbacks to that. So, lots of the mechanism was still unknown, at least from the work that I did, from the research that I did. Most of these studies were behavioral and not biochemical. There was some examination of G protein structures and things like that, but it wasn't very in-depth. And in general, produces a very intense experience. I would say that's more from common conversation and things like that. But it is documented somewhat in animals, but you can't really pick that up as well. And so yeah, produces a response that involves a dissociation from reality. And so that is obviously can be a very bad thing. So now just some quick facts. So the original plant, like I said, was from that source in Mexico, and it actually grew only in that specific region naturally, and actually at specific elevations. They couldn't find it above or below certain elevations. And the scientists went there in the 1960s. I can't recall their names, but they took some stem cuttings. They found that it grew really well from that. So all right, let's take some. And then I guess it escaped their facility somehow. And then now it's believed that the United States has been populated by, and it wasn't even many, it was several. They took several cuttings, and so then, there's their descendants is all over America.
Can those scientists remember their own names?
I know, right?
This thing's growing on my lawn.
And then the analog, salvinorin B, it's believed that salvinorin A is converted into it. And the article I looked at, they believe that salvinorin A is converted to B very quickly, and B is inactive in the brain, and so that's why it has such a short-lived effect. And some just concluding remarks, I guess. So it's used to be in a specific region. Some klutzy scientists got to it. It was used in sacred rituals by native peoples, and it's still not well understood scientifically, and it holds great prospects, I think, for future research. And I think that we should try to keep this in mind in the future. If you hear about it or happen to be working on it or what have you, just keep in mind, sacred, mysterious. So, all right. And then, so just a couple of references. There's a lot of literature, especially that's come out in recent years. But this guy, Daniel Siebert, he does some great work. I believe it's mostly self-propelled, things like that. It's pretty independent. And then these papers were pretty good, I found. That just getting a handle on salvinorin A and opioid receptors in general. And if you want more information, you can consult Ryan or myself, BACC Peer Group, Google Scholar, and the library, if you want.
Now open up the floor for questions for Sam.
Yes. Amanda.
I had a question about the drug delivery, so the drug is typically smoked recreationally.
Yes.
Do you know about in the studies if it was sort of ingested and if that has different effects or?
Well, they did say that actually traditionally by native peoples that the leaves were ingested.
Oh.
And so then those types of experiences, they would say, would last up to an hour at some points. But I believe that in all the tests that they administered on animals that it was like an oral dose. It wasn't ever like smoked. But if you look, especially like Daniel Siebert and other people, recreational users, they will tell you that if you smoke it, it has the short-term effects and that it's a more intense experience than if you take it otherwise. Luke?
Did you say it wasn't addictive to mice?
Yes. That's, they found no addictive properties and mice no dependency, and that it actually reduced dependency on other drugs.
For morphine. So how does that work? That it's not addictive, but it satisfies the addiction of morphine?
Well, that's, I only read a brief reference into it. I didn't have a chance to go and see that paper itself. But from what I understand, they had made the connection before through another compound that the kappa opioid receptor somehow is able to satisfy the mu receptor. So I didn't get a chance to say that, but usually the mu receptor is what's responsible for taking morphine and methadone and things like that. And the delta receptor has other involvements with that. But the kappa receptor, they found, was able to interact with the mu receptor and somehow satisfy that response. I'm not exactly sure how, though. And then they found out with Salvia that it had those properties as well. What's that?
Kind of building on Amanda's question. Okay, so when I was down in Peru, the locals, they chew coca leaves.
Okay.
But they don't swallow it, they like chew and spit. And apparently they do that for altitude sickness. So do you think that these leaves, if chewed, could kind of help curb addiction maybe in the future instead of just being used to get high off of it?
I would say that's a very real possibility. Definitely. They actually say that in one of the papers that I read that it's better to just do that, to actually not ingest it, not to swallow it, but just let it be absorbed by your mouth, because you'll get a longer lasting dose. And then I assume also from that would also be a lower dose. So yeah, it would only have those addiction fighting properties as opposed to making you crazy. Anything else?
Are there any other active compounds in the plant that may help explain this discrepancy between what salvia does and what puppy-derived compounds does? Is it same family receptors?
I don't think so. Like, the thing was, like, a lot of these papers, if you type in Salvia, divinorum, or whatever, it's all salvinorin A. I don't know that anyone has actually done an analysis for other alkaloids present.
Just, yeah, because it's being chewed or smoked, you could get anything.
Oh, absolutely. No, I thought that, but there is a reason that they think it does what it does. It's that it has a structural similarity to a compound U63593. yeah. Right, that's it. Anyway, this compound they found produced the same interaction at the kappa receptor. And I guess it doesn't really prove that nothing else does it, but when you have one and one, it usually makes two. All right.